Hello, everybody. It's 7:38 p.m. Central Time on the 2nd of October, 2023. Hope you're doing well, guys. It's been a few, weeks since I've done my last update? It is Monday here still in the States. I'm just doing this update to bring you up to speed on what's going on around the planet. And before we get into things, I do want to jump over here and just focus in on the area of the Mideast, going over into Asia. And we have to address this because people are contacting me, asking me about a warning that has been issued by a Dutch earthquake forecaster. But it's not an earthquake forecaster, it's a Dutch earthquake predictor. And this is not me that they're talking about. When you see this here, if you click on it, this on MSN News, whatever mainstream media outlet, you'll see they're referencing someone else entirely down here, as they call them the Dutch scientist now. So, now this is really interesting. This same Dutch guy issued a warning last week, September 19th through the 21st, for a 7.0 earthquake to strike in Egypt here. And nothing hit, a 4.0 earthquake hit down here on the plate boundary between Egypt and Saudi Arabia like normal every week, but no large earthquake struck. And I'm not one to call anybody out normally, except for when people confuse me with the person, and that's what happened 2 weeks ago with the September 19th to 21st warning. They said Dutch scientist, Dutch earthquake predictor issued a warning for Egypt, and I got contacted by person after person after person asking me about a warning that I issued. And I said, I didn't issue a warning. What are you talking about? Well, anyway, so here we are now, and the same guy is issuing a warning for over here for 7. All right, so multiple 7s getting... Now, there are times in the past where I've issued warnings for 7.0 level activity out here in the West Pacific, and we don't see the expected 7. Instead, we might get like a 6 in the location instead of a 7. Now, this brings me into the other part of the update here before I get into giving you the earthquake information, which is to do a quick search on earthquake forecast QuakeWorks. There we are. Okay, now I'm not going to click on this. This will take us over, and they'll probably get my IP and shut me down. But the people at University of Southern California have developed a new system that they're using for earthquake forecasting. And the people at University of Southern California are only making that system available to other professionals and students who are in the colleges. Now, interestingly enough, University of Southern California is the place where the professor, one of my biggest critics, went to go teach or to work there. Now, it's not him that started this new service. It's someone else that's right next to the guy, basically, at the college. And they started their own earthquake forecasting hub where information can be shared, and they get supercomputing access and other things to run models. And it just received $2.5 million in funding from the National Science Foundation this week. And it was in the news. Let me see if I can click on this and go for the last 7 days. Or maybe the last 30 days. Maybe it was within the last 30. Oh, well, it just came up in search on search. So let's just do it there. All right, well, QuakeWorks is coming up. There it is. There it is. It's just over a month. Okay, September 13th. No, it's under a month. That should have come up in search, right? This article, look, September 13th, 2023. It should have come up in search for news, right? I can't believe it, man. All right, there you go. All right, just proof that stuff doesn't come up when you should. So here it is. Here's the announcement from the college in the news talking about QuakeWorks. And my viewers said back to me when I told them about this, dude, that sounds like MonkeyWorks. Now, if you don't know who MonkeyWorks is somebody who recommends me regularly and uses a thing called Spyglass to plot out earthquakes on what looks like an AI thing And not just earthquakes, flight plans for planes, and also weather he does. That's Monkey Works now. So it's like a combination of quakes and Monkey Works. It's just weird, right? Okay. So they announced that they've got $2.5 million in funding for the development of a more resilient society to earthquakes, including working to provide critical information for emergency services. They want to share key results of the services in the earthquake community. Okay, I mean, this is just, they're talking about earthquake forecasting. It's not up for debate anymore. Now they're doing their own version of earthquake forecasting behind closed doors. Well, in a closed system that the public doesn't have general access to. They're not going to give me access to anything again. This would be for their students and the professionals to all work together to do earthquake forecasting. Simulations, too. Now, imagine my shock when I'm reading this, because I was literally ran out of the room for the last 10 years on this topic, on can earthquakes be forecast? Well, can they? Apparently the professionals think they can. So, that being said, I've already published how-to, my method. If you want to copy or repeat it, all you have to do is watch my how-to forecast an earthquake video. And that being said, let's look at the earthquakes which have struck over the last couple days and just run them down, show you where they are. We have deep 4s and deep 5s striking on the edge of the plate boundary here at the Indo-Australian plate. It's like a triangular shape in here, and it points to the east, but right there at the pinnacle tip is where our deep earthquakes are happening, down below the plates. What I found, and one of my big discoveries over the last several years, deep earthquakes followed by shallower, larger earthquakes thousands of miles away. But it's not one earthquake causing the other. It's deep earthquakes first, and then a wave spreads up, out, and away, following the plate boundaries. And I'll show you the plate boundary map from USGS. Well, did I even click on the right earthquake? Helps to see the plate boundary map so you can understand which way the wave flows. So first it comes up from down below, and then it spreads out and away. And you see these red lines here. These red lines are the plate boundaries, as well known, and not just the USGS. I mean, you can look up plate boundaries anywhere. But the wave comes up and spreads out and away by thousands of miles. So here's 1,000 miles, and we go 1,000, 2,000, about 2,000 miles, and our spacing on the quakes is a standing wave spacing, somewhat equidistantly spaced across that distance. And the magnitudes are similar, 4.6, 4.4, down to a 3.4 as we go around the bend of the plate to the south down into New Zealand, taking a magnitude step down across 2,000 miles. Now, you can also zoom in up on Japan, for instance, and you'll see the same spacing, but it's closer together. Do you see that? We call that a higher frequency spacing. So if these are spread apart further to the south, 2,000 miles, that's more like 500 miles total across this area, but the spacing's the same. It's focusing in here on the H shape of the plate boundary. It's like a dead end on a wave tank. Now, right where that focuses in, that's where we're going to get a new break. Here, in the middle, in between, where the three equally spaced quakes to the south are coming up from the south, and then out to the north we go. In between the two, I would expect a break right on the H shape, and it would be the combined total of everything on both sides. Just like a standing wave going to the end of a tank, pulling up and reflecting back into itself. And then the wave comes back up in the middle open points between where the previous waves struck. That's how a standing wave moves across a distance. Now you'll see that same kind of spacing over, for instance, this is the USGS map. I'm not even using Earthquake 3D. This is today's quakes only, 24 hours. Look at California. See the spacing? And I'm not cherry picking the quakes. These are all the quakes reported from the USGS today on their 2.5 plus feed. So there we go. Looking over to the west, you see going across Asia, same kind of spacing. Now let's get back to Earthquake 3D, because this really shows it. 48 hours worth of earthquakes shows us the areas between, which moved yesterday in light pink and dark pink. White is today. Light pink and dark pink is yesterday. And what you'll see are these white earthquakes. The bigger ones, the 5s, are right next to and equally spaced out from yesterday's previous 4s. And yesterday's previous 4s are actually going in a bend around the mountains. Now, this is the Himalayan range. We go back over and take a look at the USGS map. Look what goes that way. The plate boundary. Now you understand. The wave, when it gets to a bend point in the plate, goes around it, and it breaks. Tends to break at the bend points in the plate, where it's redirected down at a steep angle, or to the south in this case, or into the north. So, looking back at the quakes coming out of the West Pacific, it generally points like a giant arrow over to the west part of Indonesia. You see that, right? It looks like a giant wedge shape. We can go back over here and look at the USGS map. That wedge shape is mimicked by the plate boundary coming out of Japan, going down past Taiwan. But then you'll see out here there's no connection point between the two. We have to go underneath all of Indonesia to get out to the pinnacle tip out here where the pink-colored earthquakes are. But it generally is pointing in to the west, and I would expect that this wave will flow across, and we'll get a new break down here by Madagascar. This goes down into South Africa. South Africa is all the way down here. And then we got our big X right there in the middle, of course. And Madagascar is right there. So it's a huge area, I would have to warn, but I would just look right in the middle of it where the X is. And the size could go up above 6, which is very rare for Southern Africa. Meanwhile, somebody else has a warning going up here. Again, the next 48 hours that's the Dutch scientist, not me. If anything hits there, I'll want to know how to repeat the method. It's interesting that the Dutch scientist has not put out the repeatable method for the other people to copy and for science to move forward, right? I think his method is based upon astrological predictions and planetary alignments. That lets you know why the mainstream media is focusing on it, right? Now, while they're all focusing on that, take a look at this giant arrow shape again, pointing into the United States, North America, coming out of Alaska. Again, it's that wedge shape. You see it, right? And you'll see this all over the place as the wave pulls up on the edge of a plate. The wave that I'm talking about here that travels across huge distances, this seismic wave, if that's what you want to call it, spreading out towards New Zealand. That's a very low frequency or ultra low frequency spacing. Up here, still very low frequency, but it's only 500 miles across, up at Japan. So I would call more like down at New Zealand, ultra low frequency spacing, hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of miles apart. And then closer spaced up at Japan, that's very low frequency. We're going up in frequency. You'll notice over in the United States, spacing is just maybe 100 miles apart. That's even a higher frequency. So let's go into the United States, take a look. On the West Coast, 4.7, 4.7, and another 4.7, or was it just two 4.7s to begin with? I don't know whether it was 2 or 3. You'll see 3 marked here, but there's only 2 recorded. So 4.7s. Ironically, these struck on my birthday, where I turned 47 just a couple days ago on 30th. So these are 48 hours old, and these struck out here along the plate boundary, Eureka, and out in the Juan de Fuca. Here's the Juan de Fuca fracture zone. It looks like a zigzag fracture zone shape, of course. We're going to back it out, and you'll see it's really just the eastern part of the Northeast Pacific, those jagged edges. And then the little sliver of a leftover plate or a broken part of North America, I don't think we'll ever really know which. Professionals say this is a leftover plate that's being pushed underneath North America. I think, personally, it's a break-off point. It might be being pushed underneath. I don't know. Regardless of whether or not it's going underneath, we get earthquakes that break out along these pinnacle edges, as this is more like a sawtooth blade on a saw, and the rotation on this is actually a wave going around the outside edge. So we got it coming in from the northwest, and what came in from the northwest? 5.0 level activity, the wave equal to 5.0. There it is, 4.7 and a 5.1. What did we get down to the south? 4.7. Where's the 5.1? Well, it's spread out across the whole area from out here at the Blanco fracture zone. These are volcanoes out there in the water. Let's go ahead and open up Google Earth. Haven't had Google Earth open in a minute. See if it still works. Stopped using it for a week. In withdrawal. So let's go in and just take a quick look and see what the name of the actual volcanic zone here is. There we are. Well, hidden earthquakes are showing. Where's my place marks from the Smithsonian? Ah, there we go. Okay, it took a minute for them to load. East Blanco Depression. That doesn't mean there's a volcano erupting out there. It's just there's a fracture zone there, and you can see all the volcanoes along with it. There are these undersea mounts here. Anyway, we go down to the south, and we're at the south side of the Juan de Fuca. It really is where it comes in at the San Andreas. So everybody knows about the San Andreas. That's the red line that you see here going down through Southern California. Take it back up here, and it connects into the Juan de Fuca fracture zone. So right here, where I'm moving my mouse, let me make sure you can see this. Here and here, two of the same size quakes. If you add them together, equals about a 5.0. And that's what came rolling in from the north. So really, the wave, equal to a 5, came in from the north, went across, made the bend down into North America, and just took a slight step down from 5.1 down to about a 5's worth of energy spread across the Juan de Fuca. Now you can see it. Today, the wave is further going down to the south across California, dropping off equidistantly spaced quakes along the way. We can go look these up down in California on the West Coast. Go see what's going on, as well as across the rest of North America, because we got a spread going down through Texas, back up the East Coast, back up to the Great Lakes. Don't be alarmed. If you're new here, you may not have ever seen anything like this. This is about 3 days' worth of earthquakes coming in from the northwest United States. And you'll see it form somewhat like that wedge shape again, like a big arrow pointing into Colorado, also into Yellowstone. Yellowstone is up here. Colorado is right here. Texas is down here, of course, if you're familiar with North America. So what happens is the wave comes in from the northwest, and you can see it takes a diagonal line, goes down and follows those arrows down through Texas, then makes a J-shaped bend back up into the New Madrid seismic zone, then up the East Coast. And last 7 days worth of earthquakes really shows this. Now, the bigger the rings, the bigger the magnitude on the quakes. Let me turn the numbers back on. Just the numbers tend to confuse people, right? Everybody can see this. Goes down through Texas, back up the East Coast. Now, that matches this. So there's a match. The earthquakes are matching the edge of North American craton, or the North American craton. And the wave is going along the edge of the craton. It's dropping off the earthquakes along the way. This is a huge discovery that was denied by all the professionals. They mocked me for showing this, actually. Anyway, here we are now. You can see it. It goes across the edge of the plate. And now that you've seen that, let's turn off the craton graphic and go in and look up the earthquakes on the West Coast directly, see where they're at. We'll start up here in the Northwest. Now, I can just quickly tell you what's at each location. You guys could fact check me on it if you need to. I'll pull a few of them. We won't look them all up. But here, for instance, these 3 earthquakes, that's Mount Rainier. Down to the south, where the stack is, that's Mount St. Helens. Just east of Mount Rainier is the flank of Mount Rainier, and just south of Mount St. Helens is the flank of Mount St. Helens. That's where this predominant cluster of quakes is, here and here. And I'll just pull the one from Mount Rainier. It just says Washington when you look it up. That's the USGS, not me. Otherwise, it would give you specific coordinates. Pretty odd they're not giving them to you, right? Let me get a sip of my coffee while you think about that. Oh yeah, it's 8 p.m. Drinking coffee. Here we are. There's Mount Rainier. That's a stratovolcano. If you've ever been to Washington, you've seen it off in the distance. If you've been in Seattle, it's a very beautiful, majestic mountain. It's not going to erupt right now. We would see thousands and thousands of small earthquakes if there was going to be an eruption there. But would they show that to us, right? So, I mean, if they showed them to us, we would see thousands and thousands of small earthquakes there if it was going to erupt. Same with down at St. Helens. Let's just go pull one of the coordinates here. 36 kilometers north-northeast of Amboy, Washington. Anybody who's a longtime viewer of mine knows that that is going to be taking us very close to the center of the crater of Mount St. Helens. But just want to show new viewers. Again, don't be alarmed. This is just a small outbreak on the flank of Mount St. Helens. Here's the crater. And this is a rising dome. This thing's rising ever since the blast in 1980. Like the following year, it started to rise, and maybe it was 2 years later. Anyway, it's been rising ever since. There was even a small eruption in 2009. Was it 9 or 7? Anyway, 2009 or 2. It's on the USGS YouTube page. You can actually see the eruption of this thing in 09. Yeah, 09. Okay, anyway. So that's where the quakes are there. And then up to the north, we're all around the Seattle Fault on all sides of Seattle. You can see it. It's almost like a ring of earthquakes all the way around Seattle. Now, this doesn't mean too much to me. Now, if I see more earthquakes here, if we see the number of earthquakes increase, call that a frequency increase. It's like when a drummer increases their drum roll from just a beat to a full-on drum roll, okay, the roll of a snare drum. Well, right now we're just at the beat of a drum, no rolling of the snare drum. But if I see a whole bunch of earthquakes there going around the region, I would start to look for a bigger earthquake in the middle. That would be on the Seattle Fault, downtown Seattle, or very close to it. Right now, it's just going all the way around in onesie-twosies. I have not checked the tremor map in years. Years. It's been years now. Good reason. Got a long story on why I can't go to the University of Washington websites anymore. Anyway, you can see a diagonal. It's safe for you guys to go there, by the way. It's just not safe for me to go to the University of Washington's websites. There's a diagonal line of earthquakes that goes from Idaho down through Montana and dead ends into Yellowstone Park. Well, I shouldn't say dead ends. It goes into Yellowstone Park, where we have a swarm of earthquakes taking place in the park itself. Then you'll see another line of earthquakes picks up back down here at Texas. That's the same size, magnitude-wise, up to 3.0, 3.6, that's up here to the north over the past several days. So right now, we're swarming at Yellowstone, not a sign of an eruption. I have to tell you this because people run with this stuff. Just because there's a swarm at Yellowstone, we've seen hundreds, if not thousands, of earthquakes in a single day at Yellowstone before. These are earthquakes. These are not to be confused with tremors. There's hundreds, if not thousands, of tremors that happen per day at Yellowstone. And there is a difference between tremors and earthquakes. But tremors are just as the magma is moving down below, earthquakes are actually fracturing in the plate up above. These are all earthquakes here. So we have a diagonal line of quakes that goes down into the park and then focuses in, but picks back up back down here. Guess what's down here in Texas where it picks back up? Nothing but drill points. Drill points here, drill points here, drill points here, going up into Oklahoma. Every single earthquake in Oklahoma and in Texas is at a drill point. I could just randomly grab any one of them and go look them up, and you will see a drill point right next to it for oil or gas. And don't before you think I'm against oil and gas. We could say the same thing for geothermal out here over on the west coast next to the volcanoes, which I'll get into in a moment. But let's just grab a single quake down here in the southwest part of Texas, just randomly clicking on one. Depth is 6.4 kilometers deep, so really we're breaking down below where they're drilling. Another way to look at it is the wave is coming up from down below towards where the breakpoints are at the surface where we drilled. Like perforations in a piece of stone humans have drilled in, and then this wave, this vibration, this very low frequency, passing through the plate, hits these drill points. And they're pre-designated drill weak points that drill points humans have created, and the wave breaks there. So all of these are different oil or gas wells. In this case, it looks like wastewater disposal, fracking. And then you start to get the idea of how many different drill points there are here. And every one of these little white pads on the ground is a different drill point. And this is nothing. This is low amount of drill points compared to what's right next to it. So, we're on the edge of one of the biggest drill points in the southwest. And we come in from the northwest with a flow, seismic flow. Goes down, hits there, and then you can see it's like you could do a connect the dots. Before I ever had the red arrows on here, I noticed this, that there was a path of earthquakes that went down through Texas and back up into Oklahoma. That's what led me to put the arrows here on the map to begin with. I tried showing professionals. They all mocked and ridiculed me, said it was chance and coincidence. No, that was 10 years ago. Anyway, it does this every day, every week. The flow goes from the west coast, flows across, goes over to the east coast. The seismic flow. Now, the plate is moving the other way. You got to remember, the quakes are happening down in the plate, but the surface of the plate is moving the opposite way than the quakes down below. Now, I think this is due to a vibratory principle. You ever see your mobile phone? You ever set your mobile phone down on a tabletop and have it on vibrate? And if you don't have the right kind of case on your phone, you will see that phone vibrate across the solid surface of the tabletop. And many times you will see, depending on which way the vibratory device that's in your, I don't want to say that word because it'll get my stream banned, but the vibratory device that's inside of your phone, depending on which way it's facing, is going to send it going one way or the other. And I think that the quakes going through the plate down below and the vibratory up above, the surface is moving one way while the quakes are going the other, like a log rolling in a lake. Okay? So, how could the surface move one way and the quakes go the other? I think I've answered that. This is a wave that's going down underneath and through the inside of the plate. And the top of the plate is going the opposite way than the quakes are going. And that's all over the world this way. So the quakes are going the opposite way than we are told all the plates are moving. And I am not debating which way the plates are moving. I know they're moving in a certain direction. GPS measurements on the surface tell us this. But just because the surface is moving one way, the vibratory nature of this wave is moving the other. It's dropping off the quakes along the way as it flows. And that's why we're getting the same sized earthquakes all the way across the plate. We'll get 4s and 3s on the west coast. Then we'll get 4s and 3s in the Midwest. Then we'll get 4s and 3s in the Northeast. And they're all within a hair of a point of each other, proving the wave isn't losing much energy as it goes across a vast distance all the way up to the Northeast. Across North America, it does this, like I said, everywhere around the planet, it goes and flows in the opposite way than we're told the plates move. And we're shown the plates move. I'm not just saying we're told the plates are moving this way. The plates are shown to move that way with GPS measurements, and nobody should debate that. That is actually something that we could all test. I'm not into testing that kind of crap, though. So let's go down across past Yellowstone. Let's recap. A line of earthquakes coming in, going to Yellowstone, focusing in on the edge of the North American Craton. It's been a while since I've done that. On the edge of the Craton, and then it goes down across the drill points. Then it goes up to the northeast. And we don't lose much momentum. There's not much loss of energy. Like I said, 4.7s on the west coast, 4.2s on the east coast. That's a half magnitude loss of energy across 5,000 miles or more. If we go down and around, if we take all the bends in the plate into account, we're not just talking straight line distance across. This wave goes around things as opposed to straight through them. Speaking of going around things instead of straight through them, look at Oregon. We have 3-0 quakes here. And I want to go look them up to see what nothing means. So let's go see. Well, actually, it's negative nothing. Okay, now we're talking about a calculation point on this, and there's some people that try to tell me these are quakes that are put on here to calculate quakes. I don't know if I believe that. All I know is that we have a negative earthquake here, which means there's energy being sucked in a vortex of a black hole that's being generated. No, it is a calculation error, but it's basically just a surface vibration. Call it a tremor. Think of it like a tremor. So there's something going on at the surface here, but not made by humans. So what's there? Do you see all this black substance here? This is not forest fire location. Let me zoom in and show you. This is actual black basalt, black igneous rock, lava rock in many cases. Huge, huge lava flow that goes back over to the nearest butte, which is Newberry Crater Volcano. Now, I'm thinking that there's a side outbreak point here somewhere. Let's just go see if we can find it. We have to look at this sideways just to get a topography view to get our hills here. Yeah, look at that. So, okay, this is where it came out from. It didn't come out from Newberry Crater itself. Again, Newberry Crater's got the big lakes around it. off to the side of Newberry is this. So this ruptured open at some point in the past and flowed out a huge lava flow that you can see right here. So something's going on at the surface right next to this. And this is unnamed as far as I can tell. Look, borders and labels are turned on, places are turned on, everything's turned on. Even all the Smithsonian place marks are turned on. So an unnamed volcanic view. Unnamed, right? Well, as far as I can see, unnamed. We'll just put that on there. Unnamed. You go put your flag on it. Do you get to own it? Hey, look how many more there are out there. Look at that. Well, now this one looks like they've done some kind of special planting out here. Please tell me these are regular trees, not the green kind that they grow in Oregon. What kind of trees do they grow in Oregon, you ask, huh? Go ask those hippies. Let's go up to the north and take a look at this. Lacombe, Oregon. We're leaving a volcanic field. We're going to go up to the north and see what's there. That was really weird the way they had those all planted, isn't it? If you count out 99, then you know what they're doing. Let's zoom in and see. What's up here to the north? Is there anything worth mentioning? Looks like logging and forestry. I don't see anything here worth mentioning. There's no volcanoes here nearby. The nearest volcano is at least 50 miles away. I wonder if there's some kind of electrical generation going on. This is a pretty big dam. Well, minimal at that, if you really look at it. I mean, there are set... Oh, no, there is. There is. Okay. All right. So we got a generator house down there at the bottom. We have a hydroelectric dam. You can see that they're pumping out that power and taking it into this trunk line here, which looks like it's going up to the north and being used. Okay, all right. Now, it matters. This really matters. Small earthquakes next to electrical generation points. This is something you'll hear me talk about over and over again. As we see it happen more and more and more, the more documentation we get on it, the more it's making sense to me that this very low frequency wave that's down in the plate, it's electrically induced by Mother Nature. It's an electrical wave that's flowing around things. So there is some physical nature to this. But it's also electrical, by piezoelectric, down in the plate. When we get power generation, whether it's from a hydroelectric dam, nuclear power plant, coal-fired power plant, natural gas, geothermal, solar even, wind, we see earthquakes next to and below these power generation stations. It's happened all over the place. All over the place, including over here along the Great Lakes. That lone earthquake that I showed you here at Ohio, let's go pull the coordinates on the earthquake in Ohio at Madison. Now you'll notice the USGS is not telling you anything about what's at the location. I guess it's not really their job. And it would get a little messy if they showed you and told you what was nearby. But that's what I'm here for. So, look where we are. Right next to the earthquake epicenter up here in Ohio, next to the Great Lakes, we have two gas wells. Methane gas wells, drill points. But there's also something else here. Nuclear power plant. Large amount of electricity being generated there, put out on power lines, very low frequency, up above the plate, a few hundred feet at the most on large power lines. So we got drill points, and we have the power station right there, right next to our rare earthquake location for this week in Ohio. That's just another example of many I could give you. So recapping, we have drill points and we have power generation points. Both tend to be hit by earthquakes as the wave is flowing through the area for the same reason that the volcanoes are being hit. The wave is attracted to weak points in the plate. If you pump it full of power, it's like creating a weak point. As we go down to the south, we get down into California. We have a dividing line of quakes. And let me turn off the magnitudes again because numbers get in the way of seeing the pattern recognition that you need to see on this. So here we go. Line of earthquakes going down the coast. That's the San Andreas That should be no shock to anyone. We all know about the San Andreas. Over here across eastern California, most of you don't know about the flow that happens, that mimics what happens on the San Andreas, spreads out like a flowing river around to the east side of California, and starting up here to the north, every one of these earthquakes in eastern California, starting up here, going down through Nevada, and over to the east, every one is next to a volcano. Until we get all the way down here, where we're at nuke test sites. They're not doing nukes there now, but this is the only exception to the volcanic rule, where the earthquakes are striking at volcanic points. Now, it doesn't mean the volcanoes are going to erupt. They're being struck for the same reason the power stations are being struck, and for the same reason the drill points are being struck. The wave is seeking out a path of least resistance. Look at the spacing on these quakes coming in. It's like a ripple in a lake going down and then spreading out. Do you see it? Focuses in like an arrow over to the east. Turn off the magnitudes again. This is 2 days worth of quakes. There we go. So it comes out. Do you see it? Now, the reason I've got a red arrow here, 10 years ago, when I noticed this was happening. Imagine this without the arrows. Or actually, you don't need to imagine it without the arrows. I think I can just turn it off. Anyway, looks like an arrow pointing to the east. Same with up at Yellowstone. So this wave seeks a path out of an area. And that's what's going on here now. Last 48 hours worth of earthquakes totally shows it. The spots which are being struck, volcanic. If you need me to prove it to you, I will. It just turns into a really long video once I start looking up every single volcano. Let's start up to the north. Why not, right? That's what I'm here for. Millville, California. Let's go to Millville, shall we? Nothing go wrong up in Millville, guys. If you're from Millville, it's the easiest to pronounce thing that I'll be saying tonight. Turn out it won't be pronounced Millville. That's Mileville, Dutch. All right. It's Millieville, Dutch. Okay. Would they call that Milli Vanilli? Okay, all right. We're on the edge of a volcano. Like I said, I'm getting sidetracked, right? Okay, there's Silver Lake, and here's Black Butte. Yes, that's Black Butte. Black Butte, a pyroclastic cone west of Lassen National Park, was thought to be of Holocene age. But later mapping indicates a late Pleistocene age. You'll find this guy Miller, I think it's a guy. You'll find Miller came in and said everything was older and proved that it's all older. Okay, anyway, Black Butte. But you also see Silver Lake up here. And longtime viewers will remember Silver Lake from many past updates when we got an outbreak of earthquakes next to Silver Lake, followed by fires that broke out next to Silver Lake up here. And we were paying attention to the swarm that was taking place. We were looking up Silver Lake and talking about, and then the fires broke out. Well, I'm not saying there's going to be fires there now. I'm just saying we're next to Black Butte and Silver Lake. We're smack right in between them, and there's a set of power lines, high voltage, that go right across all the volcanoes. Transmission trunk line again. And that's no coincidence that they have that going over the volcanic locations either. This gets into why do they hang power lines high above the earth? Several hundred feet up. Well, there's this guy named Ben Franklin. Okay, kids, here's a science, false science, too. It's like shill science. You know, the flying of the kite story and the key and the glowing. Okay, well, first of all, he never did that experiment. He just put it out as theoretical. Other people did it and died. So he didn't discover it. Like, he just put the idea out there that you could fly a kite and gather free energy on a regular day. And he was right. And it turns out if you fly wires above the sky, up in the sky a few hundred feet up or less, that you'll pick up free power. And power companies doing that, they're selling it back to you with transformers. Anyway, that's the hidden secret of why they still put power lines above the ground, guys. They'll never tell you that at the power company, and many people at the power company don't even know it themselves. Okay, anyway, let's get in and look up the earthquakes over to the east. Let's get out of here, because that'll get me in trouble. Trouble. That's a good way to get knocked off. Good way to get everybody mad at you. But I ain't mad at you. Hey, you want to sing that with me, guys? Sip my coffee. I ain't mad at you. I ain't mad at you. All right, where are we? Lost track of where I was, too busy being a goof. Oh, we're between Lake Tahoe and Pyramid Lake. So the earthquake I just looked up here, the blue colored earthquake, this set here. If you follow this line of earthquakes, it goes down past it, of course, out into southern Nevada at the nuke sites. This spot here to the north between Lake Tahoe and Pyramid Lake is something I found many years ago. I found it on my own. What I'm getting ready to show you here if you're a new viewer. Here's the earthquake epicenter for today, but this thing, this giant oval shape. Now, this was before I had the Smithsonian place marks. I didn't have the volcanoes here. So I didn't know there were volcanoes lining this thing. So back when I saw this, though, earthquakes were going around this thing, and then fires were being reported every year, breaking out all the way around it, sometimes over to the northeast, other times down to the southwest. Once I got the Smithsonian place marks, I saw that there was a geothermal field on the south side of this thing. And I thought to look up to the north. I'm like, well, I wonder what's on the other side of this giant oval shape. And I looked up here, and there were two things. I said, what is this? These are underground bunkers, the Sierra Army Ammo Depot. And it points like an arrow over to this. And I zoomed in on these. I said, what are those? Those are like volcanoes. Turns out these are tufa deposits. From large geothermal fields that are here that have naturally deposited this. This is like those formations at Yellowstone, but way bigger, that come up from the boiling mud pots and the geothermal features. That's calcium carbonate, basically, that comes up there. Anyway, that's the Needles at Pyramid Lake. So the distance from this giant oval shape up to the Needles is about the same distance as the oval shape down to Steamboat Springs. And down here at Steamboat Springs, they've scraped it out and put in a bunch of geothermal turbines. Up to the north, this is an Indian reservation. They haven't exploited or destroyed this here. But you could think of this at Pyramid Lake just like this down here at Steamboat Springs. So really, we have two geothermal fields on either side of this giant oval shape that's lined with volcanoes and gets hit with fires all the way around the outside edge of this thing, as well as earthquakes around the outside edge of it. So oval shape, earthquakes, fires, and geothermal fields. What do you think it is? Oval shape, huge. Caldera. Let me show you one that's known down here to the south. Long Valley. This is a supervolcano, Long Valley. It's smaller than this one up here to the north. The only way I found this one up here to the north was the earthquakes going around it and the fires. Then I downloaded the place marks. So apparently professionals have missed this giant supervolcano caldera here between Lake Tahoe and Pyramid Lake. It may also explain the folded basins on either side of it. Because down here to the south, the smaller supervolcano, Long Valley, let me make sure you guys can see all this. The smaller supervolcano, it has a basin on the north side that has a volcano in it, and has a basin on the south side that's really a river valley, but this is Death Valley. And it too has a volcanic field inside of it on both sides. So it's just like the one to the north, but smaller. Now if we go look at the earthquakes, you'll see they go right down to that. They go from up here, up to the north, the spot that I had to discover on my own, and the quakes go right down to here. Once they get to here, they start to branch out over across, and then we get into the nuke test sites and everything else that I told you about earlier. Let me show you the nuke sites. If you need to go look up the rest of the earthquakes at the California-Nevada border, you will not be let down. You will find that there's a volcano, some named, some unnamed, but indisputable, that are at each location. Like I said, I'm not going to look up every single spot. We'll be doing this for 3 hours long. I wonder what this is. They're out there in the desert scraping away again, aren't they? I wonder why. See where it says lunar craters and Goblin Knobs? See where it says Mount Butte and Blair Cone? All of this location here, U.S. military testing, in case you didn't know. Backing it out, Lizard Hills, Goblin Knobs to the north, and all the way to Emigrant Peaks over to the west. So, Monte Cristo Hills borders onto the north, and the nuke sites themselves are all right here. if you need me to identify them for you, if you're a new viewer, we'll just click on one of them. U.S. nuke Operation Shiberta, 200 kilotons on December 20th, 1975. Now, this is just one valley where they've done it. They've done nukes all the way out to here. See where it says unnamed? These are where we let the Brits and the French come over and do some operations with us. Here in 1976, the year I was born, 1,000 kilotons. We call that a megaton. So these are big underground tests there in the 1970s and 1980s, into the 1990s. So getting back over to where the quakes are, they go right down through the location. Then we branch off over to the east. Once we get over to the east, we get next to a set of mines, and I don't know what's over here all the way at Caliente. There is the Skinwalker Ranch that's somewhere else over here, but I don't know where. It's not related. We got those earthquakes that were there that day. That was weird, right? Okay. If you don't know the story, it's a long story, but there was an episode on Ghost Hunters about the Skinwalker Ranch, and then earthquake struck that night that it aired down below the ranch. Anyway, you'll see. I don't believe in that kind of stuff, guys. But it happened. Here's our earthquake epicenter, and you'll see we're on the edge of another large volcanic field. This large volcanic field goes and spreads up to the Markagunt Plateau. The Markagunt Plateau itself is made up of dozens of cones, and then these are the lava flows of the Markagunt Plateau all the way down to the south. So let me just show you an example of a weathered lava flow so you can see what one looks like. See where it says Black Knoll Volcano? You can just barely see the weathered remnants of the old pyroclastic cone that's there. But you can really see the old lava flow that's been weathered down over time. Looks like a mesa. Here's a younger version of it, Bald Knoll Volcano, and you can see the lava flows there are still covered in trees. But what happens here is these will break open on the side, and a younger lava flow will flow out on an older cone when a new push comes in through the area. And the pushes, I guess, happen every few hundred years, as evidenced by the hundreds of volcanoes that are there. Anyway, that's what's there. Okay. I didn't know. I had to go look it up. Now let's go over to the east. Look up this. Which one should we go look up? We're going to look up one quake in Utah. Which one should it be? Let's look up the bigger of the two. 1.6 in Sunnyside. Sunnyside, Utah. A negative kilometer depth. We're actually above sea level. So this is near the surface, and we are above sea level. Way high up. We're up in the mountains. The altitude at this location itself is 7,400 feet above sea level, and then the quake is striking right here. Oh, wait, hold on. What do we got going on there? Hold on. Hashtag Tartaria. I'll be damned, look at that. Well, might have found a cliff-dwelling site in Utah. Out there in the mountains in the middle of nowhere. What do we got down here? We got some kind of old wagon trail road. Is that what that is? That's what it looks like. There's an actual road. Okay, that's interesting. I wonder what else is nearby. What's this place? Is this some kind of mine blast or something that I missed? No? Is this a deep mine of some kind? Is that their tailing pit? I don't see a big open quarry. Do you? Where would the entrance to the mine be? Ah. Well, I'm guessing this is a mine. Looks like it. All right, okay, well, we might have a deep mine there. I wonder if we have a street-level view on this. Ah, sure enough. Let's see what we got. I'm a curious guy, aren't I? Sometimes curiosity will get you in trouble, guys. Just remember that. Let's see what we've got at the entrance to this mine. Do we have a name? Well, the last drive-by with the car was back when they used to use Polaroid cameras, kids. Have to drop off the film at your nearest Fox Photo to get... Okay. All right, let's go back over along the West Coast. Let's recap. Diagonal line of earthquakes coming in from the northwest. Going down to Yellowstone, going along the edge of the Craton. Going down to Texas, drill point across Oklahoma. I didn't even show you Oklahoma. You're just going to have to take my word for it. Or go look them up on your own. Like I said, you'll find a drill point next to each one. It's not even up for debate. Once you get to the New Madrid, though, no drill points. But the same size quakes. 1.8, 1.9, 2.0. We get over to the east, again, same sized quakes. 1.8, 1.9, up to 2.3. And then up to the northeast, we're going to see another outbreak. You don't see them there yet. This is today's quakes. So we got a flow going across the Craton. Then, coming in from the west coast, 2 sets of 4.7s. Add them together, it equals 5.0. So we have a 5.0's worth of energy out here off the coast. It's going to be flowing down and over to the east as well. So think of this like a storm, and it's putting a little bit of rain on a river. It's not a huge deluge, but it's enough to definitely push down the San Andreas, get the wave to go down the San Andreas, and then focus on Southern California. So central to Southern California is due for a new significant-sized earthquake, 5.0 plus, in the next less than 7 days. This has all already happened. This has already taken place. This is the movement over the last 48 hours. So I would think less than 7 days from today, we will be talking about a significant-sized quake, 5.0 plus, in central to Southern California, right down here, southern tip of the valley. That would put us as far east as Ridgecrest, as far west as Lompoc, as far south as LA, as far north as Sacramento. That's where I'd watch. Of course, I'm trying to get it within 200 miles, so. Magnitude 5 plus. Why am I coming to a 5 plus? Well, we're dealing with greater energy going around the rest of the plate. You'll notice we've taken a step up. If you're paying attention to the quakes, you'll notice we've gone from 4s up into the 5-ish range. That's a magnitude step up. So we took a step up. It's like going another rung on the ladder. And it's not a huge step up yet, but with new deep 5s like this means something's happening right now down below the West Pacific. And that might sound like it's a world away, because it is. Fiji and Truman Show, right? Opposite side of the planet. But it's going to be coming around and going all the way to Europe, and it's going to be coming around and going to the United States. So this is where our flow originates from. And you start seeing stuff like this, a step up with deep quakes, that means we're going to take a step up across the board again in the next several days. So we're about to take a step up across the board, and that goes up into the 6 range then. In the West Pacific, even greater. So West Coast, United States, 5.0 plus level activity due down here along the coast from Central California south. And then over the next week, we're going to be taking a step up to 6s across the board. We'll be talking about a bunch of 6.0 level activity next week instead of 5s. Pretty much like everywhere where you see 5s now, you're going to be seeing 6s next week. Okay. And now, finally getting back to where I started this whole update. I've got people from Pakistan extremely worried, writing me, asking me, what's the deal with the warning for Pakistan? One more time, let me reiterate. I am not the Dutch earthquake forecaster, as the media is describing this guy. Or earthquake predictor. I don't predict earthquakes. And I'm not in the Netherlands, and my name is not Frank Hoogerbeets. However, if his earthquake hits Pakistan that he's warned for, he already warned Egypt on September 19th to the 21st, and nothing hit. Nobody called him out. Whenever I miss, people call me out, and I have to go back and figure out where I got it wrong. And I don't issue new forecasts until I figure out where I got it wrong, and I'm public about it, and my method. people should be able to repeat your method. If it's very complex and overworked, then it's just not going to do. People need to be able to repeat a method. So for the people who are in Pakistan who are extremely worried about an extremely large earthquake, I don't blame you. If somebody's warning you for a large quake, 7.0, and you are in Pakistan, that's something you should pay attention to and see if it hits. If it hits, I will ask him personally for his earthquake forecasting method to publicly test. Who better to test it? If it doesn't hit, I would expect a full apology from the guy and him to address his earthquake forecasting methodology being possibly incorrect, because that would be Egypt and Pakistan both not getting large earthquakes in 2 weeks' time for this guy to issue 2 7.0 earthquake warnings. You'll notice that we have 2 sets of quakes here, and there is a plate boundary that connects between both sets of quakes, here and here. Do you see that? And you'll see who's in between them. Nepal, North India. Pakistan's over here on the left side. Now, I'm not going to discount the guy's warning. I never discount any earthquake forecaster's warnings until after they flop. I want to see if their methods work. This is science. This is the study of the observable. If something works, you try to figure out how it works. So I'm waiting to see myself if something hits. The spot I would watch, and this is the overlap point, if I was going to watch for a 5.0 plus quake to hit, would be here. And that's 1,500, 2,000 miles away from Pakistan. Over here in China, Nepal, Himalayan range, where the rings overlap. Like standing wave. If the standing wave spreads, it should go over to Turkey. By the way I look at things, I could be wrong, he could be right. But there's no way to know until this warning time expires for this Dutch earthquake predictor. If you want to know the difference between prediction and forecasting, the only way I could sum it up is prediction is for the lottery and horse races. Like, you're going to pick and know exactly which. And forecasting is a generalized area that you're watching, or a generalized thing that you're watching, that can have many variables and many outcomes, like a hurricane forecast, for instance. You see hurricane forecasts, they're spread all across the entire area that's due to be hit, and then they narrow it down over time in the forecast. Same with tides, same with many other types, weather forecasting. You're not tuning in for your nightly weather predictions of exact amounts of rainfall that are due, are you? When have they ever gotten that right? So this is not prediction. So the difference between prediction and forecasting is huge. And like I said, the professionals are starting to do their own forecasting with a closed hub of information to share and access to supercomputers and modeling. Must be nice, guys. Must be nice. That being said, regardless of what the eggheads are doing, I would encourage you guys to have an earthquake plan. I would encourage you to at least have an emergency kit to get you through a couple days. Change of clothes, set of shoes, flashlight, batteries, first aid kit. It'll come in handy for all sorts of things. If you get evacuated for a fire, well, if you have an emergency kit, you might have your important documents in it. Stuff that you might need, that you don't want to fumble around for when you only have a few minutes or seconds even to get out of a building. If you're on your way out of a building and you've got an emergency kit by the door you're going to go out, you can grab it. You don't put it up in the top of a closet and have it packed away. You have it somewhere where you can get to it easily. And then here's something most people don't really think about. But if a big earthquake hits, whether it's the day or the middle of the night, there's going to be broken stuff all across the floor. Right? And many cases, it'll be glass and mirrors and porcelain and all kinds of terracotta, all shards of all kinds of stuff. And you're going to want a pair of shoes. Hard bottom shoes or slippers. If it's the middle of the night, you're going to want them by the side of your bed or where you sleep, wherever that is. If it's on the floor, you want the shoes on the floor. Some people might sleep. I don't know where you sleep. That's where you want the shoes. So you don't have to try to navigate if the power's out and it's dark and there's broken things on the floor and you don't have shoes, I'm reminded of the movie Die Hard with Bruce Willis. If you haven't seen Die Hard with Bruce Willis, it's a classic movie. Hans Gruber. But in there, he has a similar problem of having to walk across glass with no shoes. So you don't want to be caught without shoes. It's something that you most likely already have that you can put out easily by the side of your bed. Just a little thing to remind you of. I know, it's small stuff like that that could really make a difference. So anyway, the emergency kit, in it, you'll have the stuff that you need. Think about sanitation, think about medicines, and maybe even think about having some extra stuff that if you see somebody that's really down and out and needs your help, you're able to help them. Okay? Think about the people around you. Oh, elderly and kids and pets and It's a real pain in the ass to have to prepare, guys. Food and water. Luckily for me, it's just me and the Duchess and the cats. I don't have kids. But if I had kids, man, you gotta have food for them. Anyway, you guys just make sure you're prepared. Don't rely on the government or somebody else to come do it for you. That's my best advice I can give you. Enough ranting about being prepared. Much love to everybody. I'll be back. Hopefully within less than a week. Now, if you knew everything that happened over this past week. My God, it got crazy again. The crazies are out. The crazies are out. Oh, you didn't hear? Oh, well, I don't want to give the people too much credit or anything, but they started telling me, they started the whole, we're coming by again. We're going to come get you. Yeah. I said, yeah, the Duchess is well armed. We call her Catnip Evergreen with her crossbow. Never mind. There's a whole bunch of... Okay, I'm out of here. Peace out.